Hello there and welcome. Today, IELTS Writing. What is the examiner really looking for? It's a great question, and today we're going to find out. I have a special guest. We have Eli Howes who's joining me together, and today we're going to find out exactly what the examiner is looking for in IELTS Writing. Let's do it. Hello everybody. Great to see you here. My name is Keith, if you don't know me, from the Keith Speaking Academy. We're helping students speak better English, give better answers, and getting a higher score on IELTS Speaking. Now, although I focus on IELTS Speaking, so many students are asking for help on IELTS Writing, which is why today we have a special live session. I'm going to introduce you to somebody some of you know, some of you may not know. He's a teacher, a trainer, an expert in IELTS training who's going to help us, help you with your IELTS writing skills. Now, today's session, I think, is interesting for people who are new to IELTS and also people who have done IELTS before, and maybe you're kind of stuck with your IELTS writing. You just can't move up to a band 7 or a band 8. Today, we're going to solve that. We're going to talk about how IELTS is assessed, what the examiner's looking for, and help you reach your goals. Before we do that, I'd like to say, hello to all of you. I'll say hello to some of you in a moment. Let's say hello, first of all, to Eli, who is our special guest today. Hello, Eli.
Hello, Keith. Thank you very much for having me. I'm really looking forward to today's live lesson.
Me too. It's great to be back here with you. We have done lessons together before, and I know, of course, you have an IELTS writing course on my website. But for people who are new today, tell us a little bit about you and what you do.
Yes, so I'm an IELTS teacher. I've been teaching in Spain, in the UK, and also in China. And whereas you've focused particularly on IELTS speaking, I've been focusing on IELTS writing. So for many of you that are doing the IELTS test, you'll know that the writing test is probably the most difficult. In fact, the average score for IELTS writing is 5.5. So my intention is to stop that and to help people to get a higher score, especially in their IELTS writing. And I've been doing that through my YouTube lessons, which you can find by typing in English Pro Tips into YouTube. I also have a website, which is englishprotips.com. And I'm very excited to have a writing course on this Keith Speaking Academy. And that's a writing course for both academic and general IELTS students. And that course really has everything you need to be able to boost your score from, say, band 5 or band 5.5, 6 or 6.5 in order to be getting band 7, 7.5, 8, and even above. So if you're struggling with your IELTS writing, then definitely check out this course because it's a very comprehensive approach to IELTS writing.
Wow, that's fantastic. Sounds great. Excuse me. I've got a frog in the throat, as we say. Great. So that's exciting. We're going to look at a lot of things today, and I'm just going to say hello to some of the people who are here in the chat. By the way, you guys, if you're on YouTube, do turn on the subscribe button and that other thing, the notification button, so you can find out more about the up and coming videos as we do them here on YouTube. Okay. So who is in the house today? Let's have a look. We've got from China. Let me take our names off because now you know who we are. Now, Eli, I know that you're good at Chinese as well. The characters here, what are they?
I don't know what the characters are, unfortunately.
Oh, I know the last one is Ma. but I don't know the others. Never mind. I'm sure this person will tell us very quickly. From India, Alka, very nice to meet you here. Monira from Eritrea, fantastic. Good to see you here. And also we've got Oduntungalag from Mongolia. Excellent, great. We've got Mike from the Ukraine. Nice to see you here. Shahed from Bangladesh. Also Bin from Vietnam. And wow, people from all over the world. Fantastic. It is so nice to see you here. We've even got a few from Iran. Fafa, for example, is here from Iran. Brilliant. Thank you very much, all of you, for joining us. It's so nice to see you here. So if you've just arrived, to let you know, let me tell you what we're going to do today, right? We're going to look at IELTS writing. It's a bit of an unusual thing for me, but it's great to have this opportunity here with Eli. Many students do ask this question. They say, why can't I get a band 7 in IELTS writing? Why am I stuck there? And it's a bit of a headache, a bit like this person here. So we're going to help you understand how IELTS writing is assessed. And this is the key, right? Because once you understand this, once you understand what the examiner is looking for, then it's much easier for you to write the kind of essay you need to write. So we're going to help you with that. Of course, you need to develop your writing skills all the time and improve your English all the time. But exam technique with writing can be particularly, useful. And today we'll be looking at the 4 areas you need to understand, and we'll be giving you some very clear examples so you understand not just the concept, but you can see it in action as well with different examples. Okay, I hope that sounds fairly clear. IELTS writing. So, Eli, we're about to get stuck in. I wonder if our friend from China has answered. She says, China number 1. Come on, we know China's number 1, but I mean, what's your name? Very interesting. Great. This is interesting because I've had a few students, Eli, who've said to me, I would like to come to the session, but I'm not a big fan of writing. Like this person here, Remo says, writing isn't my cup of tea. And for some students, writing is really, they just don't like writing, right? It's a challenge. I mean, what do you say to students who say, I don't like writing?
Yeah, I guess there's 2 approaches. There's the kind of grin and bear it approach, which is I don't like writing, but I know that I struggle with it, so I'm going to practice writing. And then the other approach is I don't like writing so much, but I don't mind doing these types of writing. Because at the end of the day, you really need to practice your writing. So you've got 2 options. You can either make sure you practice your writing even though you don't enjoy it, or you can find aspects of writing that you do enjoy. So writing, for example, essays on topics that you find a bit more interesting, or even practicing your writing in different ways, like finding a language partner and instead of speaking face to face, maybe you can send each other messages back and forth.
Nice. Very nice. Some very nice tips there. That's lovely. That's good. As I said, I think today's session will be interesting for those of you who've been doing IELTS for a while, but also people like Spice Faith here, who says, I don't understand IELTS to start with. So I'm guessing she's very new to IELTS. There are so many bands. There are 9 different bands. The band at the bottom, 0 or 1, is like you can't say anything, basically, maybe hello. And band 9 is the very top, is like native speaker level. So it's very important to understand what the bands mean in order to reach that level. And that's a part of what we're going to be doing today and in a future session. More about that later. So, Eli, shall we jump straight in? Shall we get going?
Yes, let's jump straight in.
Let's go straight in. So we're going to have a look at, first of all, let's have a look at this. If I can bring this into the screen. The 4 areas that are important in IELTS writing. Now, we've got the abbreviation, right? I'm going to ask everybody who's here with us, can you write in the chat box what you think the letters stand for? Maybe, Eli, you could give one as a clue to help people.
Okay, so these are all the 4 marking criteria that examiners use to assess your essays. Now, the first one, TA, is task achievement. And what we'd like you to do is write into the comments section, what does CC refer to, and GR and LR? So please, in the comment section, what do these letters stand for?
Let's see. We'll wait for a minute.
Just while we're waiting, Keith, as well,
Yeah.
I think what you were saying about the band scores going from kind of 1 to 9 is very interesting. I think that was just an attempt to make an exam that everybody could sit. Because I think in the past, a lot of exams were the proficiency exam, the advanced exam, the intermediate exam. And then in IELTS is slightly different in that everyone can attempt the IELTS exam, and it's up to the examiner and your score to determine what level you have. So I think it's a new but fairly effective way of assessing somebody's level. What do you think?
Totally agree. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's interesting, right? There's no pass or fail in IELTS. You just get a score. You're either a 3 or a 5 or a 7 or an 8. And that's neither good nor bad. It just shows you where you are. Of course, if you're applying for university and they say you must have a 7, then you need 7 and above, and you may think 6 is a fail. But for somebody else, 6 could be fantastic and just enough to go and migrate and immigrate and live in maybe America or England. So yeah, it's an interesting concept. It's a slightly different concept.
That's exactly right. I often see emails where they say, I failed the exam, I only got a band 6. And I say, hold on, band 6 is an absolutely brilliant score to get. Congratulations. There is no failure in this exam. And that might be the score that you need that allows you to go and live in Australia or America, for example.
Yeah, exactly. Listen, the results are in. Let's share some ideas.
Okay.
People have got grammar range. What else have we got? Task responsibility. It's an interesting one. Task respond is interesting. We've got task achievement. Minas says LR, lexical resources. Bin carbon copy. Possibly. Task achievement. GR grammar, interesting. So we've got coherence in there. I think we've got somebody who's on the ball. Coherence and cohesion. And Jithin says task analysis. Okay. Complex curriculum. Very, very interesting answers. So Eli, maybe you could talk us through, just tell us, and I'll type up. Tell us what these stand for.
Okay, so TA is task achievement, and this is sometimes called task response as well.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm going to type it in because I'm so badly prepared. I haven't got the answers. Task achievement.
So, yeah. CC is coherence and cohesion. And don't worry, guys, if you're thinking, what on earth does all of this mean? We're going to be looking at all of these in a lot more detail in just a second. So bear with us. So CC is coherence and cohesion. So briefly, that refers to how you organize your writing. So for example, do you have paragraphs and a logical structure? GR, a lot of people said grammar. So yes, grammar, except it's slightly more complex than that. It's specifically grammatical range and accuracy. So there's 2 components. There's the range of your grammar, so the structures that you use, but then there's also the accuracy of your grammar. So can you use all of those structures accurately? And that's something that the examiner is going to be looking at when they assess your essays. Finally, we have LR, which, as somebody mentioned, is lexical resource. So lexical resource basically means vocabulary. So it's the words that you can use. Can you use synonyms? Can you put the words in the correct form? And have you spelt those words correctly? So we're going to be looking at all of these in a lot more detail in today's lesson.
Brilliant. Fantastic. Well done. Good. I'm here on secretarial duty, writing everything down. Brilliant. Nice. So those are the 4 areas. So I guess let's dig in. Somebody says check the mic. I think my mic is okay. I think your mic sounds okay, but do let us know if you're not hearing us. Let us know. All right.
And let us know which microphone is difficult to hear.
Yes. Brilliant. We're going to kick off with task achievement. Eli, tell us a bit about this and what the students can do.
Okay, so the task achievement is basically the what of your IELTS essay. So, what are your ideas? What's in your introduction? And have you developed those ideas? So, we're going to start off with the first thing the examiner is going to look at is which is the length of your essay. So, we're going to focus particularly on task 2. So, for those of you watching, see if you can fill in the missing word. So for the length of task 2, you need to write more than something words. So is it more than 100 words? Is it more than 200 words? Is it more than 300 words? How many words should you write in your IELTS essays? Or rather, how many words should you write more than in your IELTS essays? So again, comment below with the answer.
These guys are so quick. They are so quick. Kazin says 250. Camila says 250. Baitong says 250. Is it 250?
It is 250, yeah. I know that both of our channels are very popular with a lot of English teachers, so I'm not surprised that so many people are getting this right straight away, as well as all of the acronyms for the different criteria.
What happens, Eli, if somebody writes less than 250?
So they're going to get a lower score as part of task achievement. So you definitely need to be writing more than 250 words. And you also need to make sure as part of task achievement that those 250 words or more than 250 words include an introduction, body paragraph, and conclusions. So if you miss one of these components of an essay and you're writing less than 250 words, you're going to get a much lower score. So as a result, for many of you watching this, learning how to write full essays longer than 250 words within 40 minutes is very important and something you should practice before your exam.
I was going to say, so doing practice tests a lot before the test is really important, right? You need to be able to practice your time in 40 minutes writing 250 words, which is not easy for anybody. Yeah, so practice is essential, right?
That's right. What I often suggest is when you first start your preparation, don't worry about the time limit. Give yourself a lot of time to research the topic, give yourself a lot of time to write the essay, give yourself a lot of time to check over your writing. And then as you approach the time when you're going to do your exam, that's when you focus on being able to produce high level essays within the time limit.
Fantastic. Great. Good. Very interesting. So we've mentioned the length, so more than 250 words. We've got relevance, development, and position. Let's look at relevance first, shall we? What exactly do we mean by this?
Okay, so imagine you get a question like this. Teenagers should have regular exams at secondary school as this will prepare them better for life after leaving school. To what extent do you agree or disagree with this statement? Okay, so you need to make sure that you are talking about teenagers. You can see that in the question it says teenagers should have regular exams. Now, if you were to write an essay, even if it's a brilliant essay that focuses on, say, primary school students or university students, then you're not talking about teenagers, and this is going to dramatically lower your score. So even if you have wonderful ideas for primary school students or university students, it doesn't matter. You need to focus on the key words of the question. Likewise, below it says, prepare them better for life after leaving school. So your ideas should refer to how exams can help students when they finish school, not while they're at school. So as a result, it's really important to read the question carefully and underline keywords to make sure that you fully understand the question.
Mm.
Now, one thing that slips a lot of students up is they'll do a lot of practice essays, and then when it comes to doing their real exam, they'll get a similar question. And when they see the similar question, they say, "Oh, I've written an essay like this before," and they start recalling their previous essay. But what happens if the previous essay and the essay that you have in your exam is not exactly the same? Is you end up going off topic. And yes, you've written a brilliant essay, but it doesn't answer the exact question that you have in front of you. So that's very important to pay attention to in your real test.
Absolutely fantastic. Going off topic, it's a bit like going off piste when you're skiing. It's very, very dangerous. Don't go off topic, because you'll lose marks, right? You get graded down for that. And I guess one of the key message there that I think is so true for not just for writing but for speaking is, do not memorize all of your answer. Don't memorize essays, because if it doesn't fit, if the ideas are not relevant, even if it's a small difference between teenagers and adults, you're off topic, you lose marks. Yeah, great point. Very good point. There's a quick question just about word count, because I was thinking about this as well, and Joel Lant asked the same question. Is there actually a maximum limit of words? Because he wrote 400 words. What happens if you write like 400 or 500?
Yeah, so there's no maximum word limit. You can write as many words as you want. The thing is, often when you write more words, you tend to make more mistakes as well,
Right.
and you tend to rush your writing. So for most people, around 250 or between 250 and 350 words will be totally fine. But saying that, there is no limit. And I've actually challenged a lot of IELTS examiners to write model essays in the past. And I've given them 40 minutes. And all of them, without fail, have written essays that are longer than 350 words. So it's a bit of a tricky thing. In order to write a very high level essay, often you do have to write considerably more than 250 words. But you shouldn't necessarily aim to be writing a large essay. What you should be focusing on is, do you use your words well in order to communicate your message?
Yeah.
So as long as you're writing above 250 words, it doesn't matter whether it's a longer essay or a shorter essay.
Yeah. And let me bust a myth here, because and this comes up from two people. Camila says, right, but nobody's going to count the words, right? And Billy says, if you do the handwriting, you can write slightly less because the examiner cannot count the words for everyone. Okay, Eli, do the examiners count the words of each essay?
Yes, they do.
Yes,
yeah,
they do.
Um,
First thing they
especially
do, right?
if they've got reason to believe that it's under 250 words, then they've got a very strict procedure for how to count those words, and they will do that, because if they've got reason to believe that it's under 250 words, it's going to seriously affect your score. So they need to be sure about that.
Yeah. So don't fall into that trap. Good. Relevance, we've talked about. Sorry.
One thing
Yes.
I'd just quite like to add is what I find very useful is to download the the sample paper for task 1 and task 2. And if you're going to be doing the handwritten exam, then just write your practice essays on the sample paper and learn with your handwriting at what stage you've written 250 words.
Yeah.
And in that way, you don't need to count at the end of writing your essay. You know, for example, when you reach line 15 of page 2, that you've definitely written 250 words.
Nice. Yeah, lovely tip. Like it. Very nice. We're moving on from relevance then. Task achievement. You've mentioned development. Ideas are developed here. Let's have a look. Well, with the same question, right? We're talking about teenagers should have regular exams at secondary school, as this will prepare them better for life after leaving school. To what extent do you agree or disagree? So if somebody writes this, I agree, because regular exams push teenagers to develop a range of skills that are useful in the world of work. What about this? Good? Not so good? Fantastic?
Well, I would say great that they've thought about the question, that their idea is relevant, but not great because they haven't developed their idea. They've just got one sentence, and this student's probably going to move on and mention another idea instead. But as a result, they're not going to get band 7 because they're not developing their ideas.
Right, exactly. So we need to develop, as you said, I think at a point earlier when we were discussing about the number of ideas in an essay, rather than having lots of ideas, just have a few, but develop them much further. So what you might do here is something like this. You have the same beginning. Regular exams push teenagers to develop a range of skills that are useful in the world of work. For example, and then we give an example. Taking an exam requires a student to plan, prepare, and perform in the test. PPP. Plan, prepare, and perform, thus developing time management capability, resilience, and the ability to deliver under pressure. Very, very nice language. These skills referencing are invaluable in a professional setting where it is essential to be able to organize the workload and meet deadlines. This to me looks like a much better developed answer, right?
Exactly right. Yeah, and I think examples are one of the best ways to develop your ideas. The two most common ways are to emphasize something. So, for example, you could talk about how regular exams are very useful if you go to university, especially, and so you're emphasizing that university is a very good use of exams, a very good use for having done regular exams.
Yeah.
And then the other way is to have an example. So here we're talking about how regular exams help you to plan, prepare, and perform in the test.
Yeah, fantastic, great, nice. So that's a nicely developed answer. There's interesting questions coming up. I mean, we'll answer one or two questions as we go, but we'll try and stay on topic. But because we talked about handwriting before, of course, there's a handwritten test and a computer test. And Jan is asking, can you use the spell checker when doing the computer test?
No, you can't. And unfortunately, unlike, for example, Microsoft Word that might draw your attention to small typos, the computer-based IELTS test will not. So, for example, if you are typing quickly and you do what I do, which is sometimes you'll put the letters in the wrong order as you're trying to type quickly, that won't be auto-corrected as it would be, for example, in Microsoft Word. So you need to give yourself time to read through your essays before you finish.
Very good, very good. And a question here about the question we've talked about here about exams, and it's an agree or disagree question. So is it always necessary, asks Kiran, to take a clear stand or position? Can I partially agree, for example?
So yes, you can partially agree, because partially agreeing is a clear stance. The important thing is that you have a position. So you can partially agree or you can completely agree. And we're going to be looking at that in a bit more detail throughout this lesson.
Yeah, fantastic. Great question, Kiran. Thank you for that. So we talked about developing ideas. What about, well, position? That takes us nicely, a little segue into position. Tell us more about this, Eli.
Okay, so for band 7 or above, we need to have our position in the introduction and conclusion. So for example, at university, you might be taught that you only need your opinion, which is your position, in the conclusion. However, for IELTS essays, you need to have a position in the introduction and your conclusion as well.
Right, exactly. Fantastic. So here's an example, right? In the introduction, if you like, at the beginning, somebody may say this, maybe I can read it out. Exams are an important feature of secondary education. However, there is contention over whether frequent exams prepare students for post-school life. So that's kind of paraphrasing the question. I believe that teenagers should be given regular exams, as this will provide useful practice before they go on to be assessed in university and also help develop a range of skills which are essential in the world of work. So, why is this good, Eli?
This is good because the examiner is going to read it and they immediately know what your position is in relation to this question. So there's no doubt in their mind about what you believe in relation to this question. And so they'd expect to see that in the introduction and the conclusion as well.
Right, right. Fantastic. Good. Nice. Quick question coming from Fafa asks, how much time do we have for the writing?
So you have 1 hour in total. So that's for task 1 and task 2. And the IELTS test partners, so British Council and IDP, recommend that you spend 20 minutes on task 1 and 40 minutes on task 2, although you can choose. And actually, many students find they do better if they spend 25 minutes on task 1 and 35 minutes on task 2. The important thing is that you practice different time allocations to find out what's best for you.
Fantastic. Good. Great. Good question, Fafa. So we're talking here about what the examiner's looking for. Then you've got to focus on task achievement. You've got to focus on relevance, relevant answers, developing your answer, and having a clear position or opinion. We've given an example here. I believe that. I'm interested to know from people watching, how would you express your opinion in the writing task 2? Clearly, I believe is one way of doing it. Guys, write in the chat. Let us know what you would probably write to express your opinion in the task 2. Let's see what you've got. While you're doing that, I can see some more interesting questions. These guys are full of interesting questions. Sylvia says, if I have bad handwriting, will it affect my score? Possibly,
No,
if it's
not.
illegible.
Yeah, exactly. If it's incredibly bad handwriting, then yes. But you've got to remember that examiners are trained to see all sorts of different handwriting. So even if you think your handwriting is rather messy, they're evaluating you based on the language that you use, not on whether they think your handwriting is neat or whether they think it's messy. So they'll do their best to try and understand it. Saying that unconsciously, I think when you see bad handwriting, you do have a bit of a kind of unconscious bias potentially against that student.
Yeah.
And so I would take time to try and improve my writing and my handwriting before doing the IELTS test if possible.
Yeah. I think what happens is people are writing so quickly because they're looking at the clock, 40 minutes, they write quickly. And if you've got so handwriting, it gets even worse as you write more quickly. And that's the challenge. And I think, as you said, yeah, it can be a bit like a bad first impression if you're turning up with very scruffy clothes. People are thinking, oh, maybe it's not good quality. And if it is completely illegible, you won't be marked, but that's very unusual. Let's have a look at some of the ideas that have come up here. And maybe with the different ones here, Eli, you could say, or we can take it in turn, say whether we think it's good or not suitable, maybe. So Parisa, I believe. Of course. What about this one, Eli?
Yeah, that's fine. I completely agree that they're definitely being very explicit on what their opinion is. So that's great. I completely agree, or I completely disagree. Great.
This one from Sanvin.
I think that would be more common in speaking than in writing. What do you think about that, Keith?
I wouldn't put this in writing. I would not use that in a writing essay. I think it's too colloquial. It's great for speaking in the speaking test, but not in IELTS writing. I think it's too informal. Biang says, I think. What do you think?
Yeah, I think is fine. I think there are a few better ones, again, for writing in particular.
Yeah.
But I think would be okay.
In my opinion, yep. What about this one from Alanike? I genuinely think.
I don't think it's really necessary. Again, when we see I think, we'd usually put that in speaking more than in the writing test.
Right.
And so likewise with I genuinely think.
Yeah.
Let's keep that in the speaking and not so much in the writing.
Right. Maybe a better way of giving that idea of genuinely is something like what Farheen says. I strongly believe that.
Yes.
What about this one from Mohammed? From my point of view.
Yeah. From my point of view, I would put that in the category for speaking instead of writing.
Yeah.
It's not one that we commonly see in writing, although it's a great one for speaking.
Yeah, I agree. I would argue.
Okay, I love this one. Yeah, what you'll often find is because you need to put in your opinion in the introduction and then also in the conclusion. What you don't want to do is repeat the same way of talking about your opinion. So what you could often do is in the introduction, you say, I believe that, and then you have your position. And then in the conclusion, you say, I would argue that. Right. So you're showing the examiner that you have two different ways to give your opinion and you avoid repetition.
Great. So yeah, avoid repetition, have at least two different ways of saying it. Nice. Listen, let's move on. We've talked about task achievement, having a clear position, both in the beginning, in the introduction, and in the conclusion. We're going to move on to CC. If you remember, all of you at the very, very beginning, we had task achievement, then CC, which was, if you remember, coherence and cohesion. Let's come now and look at coherence and cohesion in more detail. Eli, maybe talk us through what we can look at here, what the examiner's looking for.
So the examiner is going to assess you on 4 criteria for coherence and cohesion. The first one is the progression of your ideas. So does your essay have a logical structure? Is there an introduction, body paragraphs, and a conclusion? And then also, how have you organized those parts? So for example, have you used linking words to organize your ideas in your body paragraphs? And then what about within sentences? Do you also have linking words to organize your ideas? Then finally, they're going to assess you on referencing. And that's using pronouns correctly. So instead of repeating the same noun over and over again, you can use pronouns, for example, they, or to refer back to the noun.
Yeah, fantastic. Good. I don't know what you think, but I sometimes think of coherence or cohesion as being a bit like building a house with bricks. You know, when you put the bricks on top of each other, you put the brick in the right place to build up your structure. You've then got the cement that kind of sticks the different bricks in the right place. Your cement being the kind of the linking words, if you like, to get this structure at the end, which is your house, hopefully a nice structure. So often I think of coherence and cohesion being a bit like building a house with bricks. But
Yeah,
that's
that's
me.
exactly right. And it's something that's also evaluated as part of your speaking. It's just that you tend to use different linking words. I guess in speaking, it's called discourse markers.
Yes.
So while in writing, you might use a phrase like, or a word like however or furthermore,
Yes.
in speaking, you might use a word like but or
Yes.
after that.
Exactly. I think that's a big challenge for students to realize which kind of words are written words and which are spoken words, especially with linkers and connectors, because you want to make sure you're using written ones when you're writing and spoken ones when you're speaking. I think a piece of advice I often give students is if you're learning vocabulary and connectors by reading, you can be very sure you can use them in your writing. If you're learning connectors through listening, you can be very sure you can use those in your speaking because you've heard them in a speaking context. So that as a quick tip is a very simple way of thinking, okay, I can use this for writing because I've seen it in somebody else's writing. Right. Let's switch back. We're back into coherence. Let's have a look in a bit of detail then. I mean, structure, the overall coherence of structure. This is nice. Maybe talk us through this. What does this mean?
Yeah, so basically there's different levels to the structure of your essay. So on the left, we can look at the basic structure, which is you'll have your introduction, then you'll have body paragraphs, usually 2 or 3 body paragraphs, and then a conclusion. And even before the examiner reads your essay, they're going to be able to look at the structure of your essay and get an idea of whether or not you followed a logical structure and you have an introduction, body paragraphs, and then a conclusion. But then there's also the progression of your ideas within those components. So, for example, in your introduction, a logical way to organize it would be to first introduce the topic and then afterwards to respond to the question. So, if you start to respond to the question before you introduce the topic, that's no longer logical and you will get marked down for coherence and cohesion. And then also, again, in your body paragraphs, ideally you want to have a topic sentence at the beginning of your paragraph where you introduce your idea, and then below that you'll have a development where you talk about examples and you go further into your idea. And then finally, in the conclusion, ideally you'll want to have 2 components, which is restating your position and then summarizing your ideas and making sure those are ideas that you've already mentioned in your body paragraphs.
Mm,
So this is what they're going to be looking for when they think about a logical structure for an essay.
great. And this is a great starting point, right? To have here something very, very clear that you can follow step by step. Very, very simple. Of course, the key is what the content is and how you connect it all together. That's where you need to work on your writing skills overall. In a quick answer to a question from Kirat Kaur, who asks about how can students improve their writing skills, especially if they're non-native. I think one aspect is, yes, having structures like this and templates to follow, but the other part is really it's in the practice. It's doing lots of practice to build up your flexibility and your writing skills, whether it's essays or letters or diaries or whatever you do. So I think both of those, you need exam technique, but you need to improve your writing skills as well.
Exactly. I would say all of the members of my writing course on your website, Keith,
Mm.
all of the ones that have been able to get band 7.5, band 8, and there's even a student that's got band 8.5,
Yeah.
without fail, all of those students have written many, many essays themselves. So typically students that don't do so well are the ones that intend to write a lot of essays, but then get kind of carried away and distracted, and they leave that to the last minute. And then the students that do very well in the IELTS writing tests are the ones that are disciplined, and they say something like this: every day or every second day, I'm going to research a topic, I'm going to write an essay, and then I'm going to compare it to a model essay. And then as they develop that habit over time, their writing really improves, and they're often rewarded with a great result. For example, just last week I was talking to a student that was able to score band 8 in her writing test, which she's totally thrilled about. And a large part of getting that score was the fact that she diligently wrote many, many practice essays. In fact, she sent me 8 essays to evaluate, but I'm sure she did more than 30 essays that she didn't send me, that she just did for her own practice.
Right, right. Fantastic, fantastic. So listen, don't be obsessed with tips. Be obsessed with practice. That's our message. So we've looked at logical structure. Let's move forward and look at linking words, especially between sentences. Now here, Eli, you've put up some sentences, and we've got gaps for the linking words, right? So I wonder if the guys watching, the guys and the girls watching, what do you think the gaps are? Have a look at these, read them through, and tell us which word. There's one word, a linking word in each gap. Tell us what you think. Quick answer to Mandeep's question, whether the examiner counts the word like the, is, am. The answer is yes. They count as words.
Yes, they do. Yeah.
Yes. Jan asks this question: where can I find an example of this essay structure? I'm tempted to say in Eli's course, because there's loads of them in there. But also, yes, I mean, you can find them on the internet. The challenge on the internet is you never know which ones are good and which ones are bad. But if you can find reputable websites, then that helps.
Yeah, I think it's very important you write reading essays that are genuinely a high level, because if they're supposedly a high level but they're not, then they could be leading you astray and teaching you aspects of writing that aren't actually going to help you.
Yep.
Keith, I hope you don't mind me saying so, but there's going to be a couple of giveaways at the end of this, or rather the extension of this lesson, which is when students are going to be able to get a model essay, a high-level model essay, and that'll be a good resource for them for their IELTS writing.
Absolutely. So stick around to the end, because we're going to give you, give you and show you something. Yes, we're making it mysterious, but it is a bit mysterious. There's some extra training and some model answers we're going to share with you. And let's have a look at your answers. Before we do that, there's a quick question, which I think, Eli, you may want to answer this one, although UH has spelt your name wrong, but it's, do you provide evaluation service for writing?
Yes, I do. If you go to englishprotips.com and you go to writing evaluation, which is just at the very top of the website, then you'll find my writing evaluation service.
Okay, great, good. Okay, let's have a look at these words. Regular exams are an important feature of secondary school education. Moreover, there is contention. Moreover, there is contention. Eli?
It's not moreover.
No. What about, because moreover means in addition, right? But here we're not adding. The contention is not an addition. It's more of a contradiction. However, right? However,
exactly,
is good. However, now maybe, okay, so however would be a good one for the first one. For the second one, maybe this is what you meant with moreover. For the second one, we've got, I'm assuming, furthermore, having frequent exams at schools. It's hard to know which ones people have put. Therefore.
So the first one is however. So that's great. We've got the first one, and that would be in the introduction. And as Keith mentioned, however is a very useful contrasting linking word. So definitely you're going to be putting some howevers in your essay. Now, in the second one, this sentence would appear at the very beginning of a paragraph. And so we're wanting one word that's going to indicate our first idea.
I'm looking for other answers. Furthermore, again, while. Lots of different ones here.
So this is a great collection of very useful linking words.
Yes.
In this particular case, we wouldn't use, for example, in addition or while. We're going to use firstly, and that's a very useful linking word when we want to show our first idea. So remember, we talked about having each paragraph having a central topic, having a central idea. So we can use a linking word like firstly at the beginning of our first paragraph to show to the examiner, this is the first idea of my essay. And then in the second paragraph, we would use something like secondly or in addition.
Fantastic. Sometimes students do ask me about this and they say, should I be looking for really more complex linkers like in the first place or something like that? Is firstly too simple or is it okay?
Firstly is fine. I think it's all about using the right linking word and then using a variety of linking words.
Right.
So certainly there are some that sound more sophisticated. So I think nevertheless is a very, being three words in one, it always sounds very sophisticated. But I don't think that you should go out of your way to use sophisticated linking words. I think it's about using the most appropriate linking word to communicate your idea.
Great. So things like maybe first of all could be okay.
Great.
To initiate with, I think is not really suitable, right? It's over.
No, not suitable.
No, it just doesn't work. To begin with.
Why can't we use to be? Yeah, so to begin with would work. Yeah, and then in the second paragraph we'd expect something like in addition to this,
right?
In order to introduce our second idea.
Yeah, exactly. Good, great. Okay, so listen, we've looked at different linking words here, which are very important between sentences, and as Eli says, between paragraphs. What about connecting ideas within a sentence? Have a look here. And actually, what I'm going to do, just to make this easier for me, if I put a number, if you give your answer, guys, in the list, just put the number. Say number 1 and or so. Number 2, whatever you think. Great.
Or maybe even just for the sake of time, Keith, maybe we could just do number 1.
Yes, because I've just noticed we are a bit behind time. Okay, let's do number 1. Yes. Let's do just number 1. Just having, everyone's got any answers?
And Keith, if you want, I could quickly tell you the answer for number 2, just for those people watching, just so they
go for
peace of mind.
Go for it.
So number 2, I think, is thus.
Thus. For number 1, Because.
Yes,
Yeah,
because could
because works.
certainly be used.
Anna says due to. Anna, where have you gone? You were there a minute ago. Not due to. Grammatically doesn't fit.
The idea works, but exactly as Keith mentioned, grammatically it doesn't work there.
Felipe, yeah, as good. Yeah, that works great. Great. So as works nice because, and in the second one, as we said, thus could be an answer here. Maybe hence could be there as well.
Exactly, hence as well.
Okay. Brilliant. Let's move on. I'm just aware of time. Referencing using pronouns correctly. So what we've got here is an answer. If you just have a look at this answer, I'll read it through and just think about the use of pronouns here. Regular exams are an important feature of secondary school education. However, there is contention over whether exams prepare students for post-school life. Okay, so we've got exams here and we've got exams here. And then I would argue that teenagers should be given regular exams at secondary school, as exams prepare teenage students for students' academic and professional life after students have left school. Now, it doesn't sound too bad, but you'll notice again, we've got exams and exams. We've got teenagers. We've got teenage students and students and students. So what's happening is there's a lot of repetition, right? And although it's not necessarily incorrect, it's not flexible and it's not giving you that high level that you should be able to show off. So with pronouns is where you can change that entirely and get something like this. They, referencing, of course, the exams, they prepare students well. Here, this, so doing the exams prepares them referencing the teenagers, they're referencing the teenagers, and they also. But of course, grammatically, each one will be slightly different. Anything to add?
So I think pronouns. Pronouns are just a great way to make sure that your writing is easy to read for the examiner and that you don't repeat certain nouns too often.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, fantastic. So great. We have. Hello. Guys, I hope you are still there. I do apologize. Something very, very strange just happened. Technical problems. Something cut out. We lost Eli for a moment, but I think I can get him back in. Yes, I did leave you alone. I apologize. It was to give you time to think and consolidate all the things we're teaching you. Honestly. Hello again. Thank you for being patient. I'm so pleased we're back with you. It was probably a good time, actually, because we were going to take a little break. Let me just see if I can bring in, not this, but I want to bring in Eli back again. Can I bring Eli back in? I don't know if I can. So, okay, bear with me, guys. Oh no, I'm on a nightmare here. I should be able to bring you in, but bear with me. I missed you too. I missed all of you. But we've had a bit of a technical problem, and I'm just trying to get Eli back in. would you believe it, right? At the most inopportune and unexpected moment, the gremlins decide to come along and wipe me out. Well, they haven't wiped me out, they've wiped Eli out. He's been pushed out of the Ethernet, and I'm trying to get back in, get him back in. Right, bear with me. I think we're going to get there in a moment. You're all brilliant. Thank you so much for all being so patient. Yes. Yeah, that's right. You're absolutely right. Maybe we could give guys a moment to have a look at some of these whilst I'm here and see if you can guess what the idiom is. Here's one for you. Okay. Right, I've got to go here. I've got to try here. No, not here, but here. Wow. I'm not sure about this. Bear with me, guys. Eli, this is looking very complex to do, and I don't think it's going to get in. So I can't see how to get you through as a guest, which is on Skype. Alternatives. What are the alternatives? We can try Zoom. I'll have to. Yep, I'm going to have to research how to do it. I don't know how to do it on Zoom. So I'm just going to try one more time. No. Oh, no. See if I can get you in an eCam again. Hello. I hope you are still there. Okay, I think you're still there. I think we're reconnected. Okay, hunky dory. Great. So listen, I do apologize. I realize everybody's gone away. Of course, everybody's gone and done something else, but we are back here. At least for those of you who are here, thank you very, very much. We're back, says Eli. And Eli's back. Look, yes, where is he? Come back, Eli. Where are you? There he is. Excellent. We're back.
Very happy to be back.
Yeah, I do apologize for that. Sometimes kind of technology just takes over and ruins everything. So listen, not to worry, but we were showing you some pictures here, and it was this one, wasn't it? It was the not that one. It was this one. Guess the idiom, and sure enough, a lot of you got it absolutely right. Such as Ismael, who said the elephant in the room. Ismael, let me bring you in here with us. Da-dun, da-dun. Elephant in the room. A few people had that. Well done. Maitrang as well. The elephant in the room. Eli, what does that mean exactly? The elephant in the room.
So that's typically the controversial topic that everybody's thinking about, but nobody's talking about.
Right. For example, the fact that our technology just completely failed. I'm ignoring it and carrying on with the class.
As though nothing ever happened.
Nothing ever happened. We're here happily talking about IELTS writing, showing you what the examiner is looking for. I'm going to show a quick other one here. One more, just to give me a moment to get my second wind. Guys, can you guess the idiom? Interesting one. What can you see in the picture, Eli?
I see a large green object with many leaves. So I guess that could be a bush. And then the word beat. And the word beat is strategically positioned in relation to the bush. So hopefully that's going to give a bit of a clue to some people.
So I would say beat on the bush, but beat on the bush is not an idiom. What can that mean?
No.
Fortunately, we've got some much more intelligent people watching, including Anuat, Julia, Tony, Jan. And this is often used, as somebody put it, this is often used in the negative, right? We often say, don't beat around the bush. Ismail, again, come on, don't beat around the bush and return to the subject. So beat around the bush. What's another way of expressing that, Eli?
I guess to be ignoring a topic, isn't it? And not coming to a decisive statement or a decisive answer to something.
Yeah, I often think of it as a bit like rambling or going around in circles. That you're not going direct to the answer, you're just going around and around the answer, as you say, kind of ignoring the answer.
And Ismail's example sentence is spot on. People often say, "Hey, stop beating around the bush," as in, stop ignoring the answer, or stop rambling. Give me the truth, even if it's a hard truth. Give me the truth.
Yeah, exactly. Give me the truth. Tell me the reality. Very, very nice. Good. Lots of people have got that. Prince says, we just want to see you instead of this elephant. Oh, fantastic. And Sally, hello again to not both of you, to you, Sally, from both of us. Yes. Okay. Excellent. So we're back. Eli, one more idiom, or shall we go straight back in?
Go on. Let's see one more. They're quite a lot of fun.
They are fun, and we need to relax after all of that disaster. This one is quite interesting, right? See if you guys can get this one. I can see this looks like an exit sign in a hospital or something, right? Somebody leaving. Huda, welcome back. Thank you very much. Welcome back to you as well. I'm glad you've returned after our little technical mishap. Mishap being accident. Right, somebody has already got the answer. Look at that. Well, let's have a look at some of the more difficult ones. So if I just take it away for a moment. Tengi said exit. Well, exit. Got out of topic. exit. And then we've got, what else? Hurry out. Now then, here we go. Christian, out of the blue. De la nada. Out of the blue. Little Jewel, out of the blue. Duh. Duh. Well done. Hassan as well. You've got it, out of the blue. Something out of the blue. Something happens out of the blue. What does that mean, Eli?
It means it happens unexpectedly. So when we got disconnected, it happened out of the blue. And then when we got reconnected, it happened out of the blue as well. I'd lost all hope.
Me too. Me too. So, in fact, it's interesting. All of these idioms connect very nicely to our technical mishap. We lost connection out of the blue. Then we decided to not talk about the elephant in the room, and we were just beating about the bush until we came back to the topic. And today's topic, of course, is writing, IELTS writing. So if you've just come back, just to let you know, my name is Keith. I run the Keith Speaking Academy, which is at this website address. You can go and check it out later. And I'm here today with Eli. Eli Howes is an expert in IELTS writing, also has a writing course on my website. And we're looking at how IELTS writing is assessed, right? So we have done quite a bit so far. So far, we've been looking at task achievement. These are the 4 areas that the examiner is looking for. The examiner is looking to see if you've done task achievement. And we've talked about that, about giving relevant answers, developing your answer, and also coherence and cohesion. We've talked there about the logical structure of the linking words that you need, all of the things that the examiner's looking out for. We then got cut off, but now we're back. And we're going to look at the other 2, which is grammar, grammatical range and accuracy, and vocabulary, which in the trade we have a fancy name just to make ourselves look more professional. We like to say lexical resource, but really it's just vocabulary. So let's have a look at grammar first. Let me move on. No, let's not do that. Let's look at lexical resource first. Eli, over to you. What are we going to look at here?
Okay, so 4 criteria for lexical resource. The first one is the range of vocabulary, so the variety of words that you use and topic-specific vocabulary, for example. Afterwards, it's the accuracy of your vocabulary, so the accuracy in meaning. Are you using the best word to convey your idea? But then also accuracy in the word formation. So do you put the word in the correct form as a verb or as a noun or as an adjective? And then after that, spelling. So yes, spelling is important in IELTS writing. And finally, paraphrasing, which refers to the idea that we can rewrite sentences or use synonyms. So using different words to mean the same thing.
Great.
So we're going to look at all of these individually, starting, I think, with the range of vocabulary. So a little hint here on the left is the model essay. And this essay was answering the question that we looked at before about whether exams are good for teenagers for when they finish high school and they move into the world of work or go to university. So this essay uses a lot of useful collocations, so a lot of specific education-related collocations. So things like post-school life, so a synonym for life after leaving school, or a range of skills, to talk about a collection of different skills, or world of work, or ample practice. So ample practice means a lot of practice. And then further education is a synonym for going to university. So examiners will pick up on these collocations that you use and give you a higher score if you use them accurately.
Very, very nice. For those of you who haven't heard of collocations before, collocations are key for learning vocabulary, right? I mean, they're normally 2 or 3 words that typically go together to make a phrase or a chunk. And I think, Eli, I don't know if you agree, but I think when we're learning vocabulary, rather than learning just one word like skill, a skill, it's really useful to learn a chunk or a collocation, like a range of skills or a work life skill, because that collocation gives us more fluency because we're not working word by word, we're working phrase by phrase, and we know the phrase is accurate. What do you think?
Yeah, I completely agree. And I would say sometimes I find it quite difficult to teach collocations just because there's so many collocations out there.
Yeah.
But for students that do want to learn collocations, I often recommend reading and just
Mm.
pay attention to the words that often appear next to each other. That's a good way to build up your collocations list.
Yeah, great, good. Tony is just asking: is there a difference between collocation and phrase? Um, there is a difference for in the world of teaching and teaching languages. Yes, linguistic, there's a difference, but from the point of view of your practice, a collocation can be a phrase or a chunk. I wouldn't worry too much about the kind of the linguistic difference, though there is a small one, but more or less they're similar.
Mm.
Okay, great. So variety of words, and then topic specific vocabulary. What's that, Eli?
So yeah, so you're going to be assessed on different topics throughout the IELTS test. So for example, in the speaking exam, you might have part one, which will typically deal with 3 different topics, and then part two and part three of the speaking test will look at a specific topic and ask you, and you'll be asked many questions about that. And then again, in the writing test, you might be given another topic again. Now, these topics don't tend to be difficult. It's not that they're topics that you've never encountered. The idea is they're topics that language teachers think that everybody should be able to engage with. So things like the environment or roles and responsibility. Another very popular one is education and upbringing. So you're going to be assessed on different common topics, and the examiner is going to be looking to see if you have vocabulary that adequately talks about these topics. So this one is about education, and in this essay we can see things like assessed in university, developed skills, tested, practical and vocational coursework. So we're showing the examiner that we have vocabulary related to this topic.
Mm. Great. Now that's nice. Now I'm as we're talking about words and vocabulary here, and just because we've had a bit of fun with the idioms, there are some very interesting questions that have come up, and I thought we'd get these questions, so let's answer them. Let's not ignore the elephant in the room. Jan asks, will you get more points or a higher score when using idioms in your essay? Latvia says, can we use idioms in IELTS writing, task 2? And UH says, can we use phrases in formal writing, like academic task 2? Maybe let's focus on this idea of idioms in writing task 2. I've got my idea. Eli, tell us your idea as well.
Sure. So we don't tend to use as many idioms in writing. In fact, it's quite rare. However, there's a difference between idioms and idiomatic vocabulary.
Yeah.
And so idiomatic vocabulary can include phrasal verbs. And while you're much more likely to have phrasal verbs in speaking, there are certain phrasal verbs that appear in writing as well. So things like carry out research. So carry out is a phrasal verb and therefore idiomatic, and we see that more often in writing. However, in general, we don't tend to use idioms in writing. Would you say something similar, Keith?
I would say something very similar, yes. And I realized as we were talking about idioms, people may be thinking, oh, idioms I can use in writing. By and large, those idioms we use are used in speaking, much more in IELTS speaking. And I think, as you said, it's rare to see them in writing unless they are, for example, phrasal verbs, which can be idiomatic. or different idiomatic expressions which are smaller. So I would agree. And I think just tying into UH Shah's question, when he talks about phrases in formal writing, everything is a phrase basically. But if you mean collocations, so for example, when we're talking about collocations, these phrases, absolutely, in both speaking and writing, absolutely, you should be using collocations. But if you're talking about idioms, I would say rarely in the writing, very rarely. I would think of those mainly for speaking, as we said, except for some phrasal verbs or other idiomatic expressions that you may find.
Yeah, and
Okay.
I think, for example, like a phrase like "I would argue that." So that's a very useful
Yeah.
chunk, as you mentioned earlier, that
Yeah.
would be very acceptable and would help you to get a higher score in IELTS writing.
Yeah.
But it's not an idiom.
Exactly. Things like beat around the bush, probably you wouldn't use, or out of the blue, you wouldn't use in writing, really. Not in academic writing, to be
No,
clear.
but
In
quite a lot
writing,
of fun to learn.
but they're fun to learn. Yes, exactly. Right. Talking about vocabulary, topic specific vocabulary, we've talked about accuracy and spelling. This is very important. Why is it important, Eli?
It's important because it's going to affect your score because it changes the communication. For example, if you said something like "it improves great," then the examiner is going to say, "What? It improves great." But if you
Mm,
say "it improves greatly" or "it
mm,
greatly improves," then you're using the word "great" in the correct form as an adverb. But if you say "it improves great," you're causing confusion. You're not using the word "great" accurately, and you're going to get a lower score.
right. So I guess there's always a bit of a balance, right, between using more complex vocabulary and accuracy and making sure you're accurate. Because it's easier to be accurate with simple vocabulary. So I guess there's always a bit of a balance you have to get there.
Yeah, I'd say for 99.9% of students, it's better to focus on using vocabulary that they can use accurately and not trying to use advanced vocabulary.
Mm,
Because
mm,
the chances are, even if you don't think the vocabulary that you're using is advanced, examiners will be able to identify what level that is, and you'll probably be using more advanced vocabulary than you think. And
yes.
if you're using it accurately, then you're also going to get the score for accuracy as well. So focus on communicating your ideas and not necessarily on trying to use words that you don't really fully understand because you run the risk of not using it accurately.
Fantastic advice. Great. If I could have a little heart, I'd be pressing my heart now. Great. Spelling. Here's an interesting one. So, yes, obviously, spelling is a part of accuracy, right?
Yes. So some typical mistakes here, especially with the double letters, like essential with two S's, assessed with four S's, and then useful with the singular L. So spelling is important, and a lot of students are very unhappy to hear that because English spelling is often considered to be a total nightmare.
Yeah.
But believe we've got a bit of a spelling challenge to go through, Keith.
We do have
Something
a
that
spelling challenge. So we thought we'd take a moment. We're just going to take a little moment. We've been looking at vocabulary. Hello, you're back. How do I get rid of you? Get rid of you. um, we thought we'd give you a spelling challenge just to break a little bit, but to focus on vocabulary and spelling. Let's see how good you are at spelling. So if I can find my the information that I need, which I should be able to do before we had this technological nightmare, if I call it thus. So let's try and bring us both back in. Here we go. So we're going to start with two words. I mean, one's correct spelling, one is incorrect spelling, and there's an example. Eli, do you want to read the example?
the cost of student is rising steadily. So what
Right.
is the missing word? So the word is going to be accommodation, but how do we spell it?
Yep. Spelling challenge. That's right. So, how do we spell it? So, Bin and everybody else, get your spelling hat on and tell us, just type in what you think the correct answer is. Interesting. So, Macrog has gone for, well, he's gone for his own answer because that's not one of the two. He's gone for double C, single M. Who knows? Let's see. Jazayim, you've gone for the double C, double M. Anna as well, double C, double N. And the answer is double C, double M. Well done. Very nice. The next one we've got now a day or nowadays. Eli, do you want to read the sentence?
It is impossible to escape the abundance of adverts now. Well, I can't say it.
Don't say it. Great. So, guys, choose your answer here. Is it nowadays or nowadays? What do you think? Stefano, I like your answer. 2C, 2M. Nice and brief. Love it. So, here are some possible answers. Saban says nowadays. Alina, you've got your own little answer. You've decided to make it into 3 words. That is interesting. Layla says nowadays. Right, I think this says xiao he ma. Little hippo, xiao he ma, of course, a little hippo. Nowadays, let's find out the answer. It is nowadays. Hey. Well done. The next one. Now, how do you pronounce this? Because I was listening to a podcast the other day and I found it quite interesting. How do you pronounce this word, Eli?
I pronounce it leisure.
Right. The podcast I was listening to, it said leisure, our leisure time. And I thought, leisure? And of course, I realized it was the American pronunciation. Of course.
Yeah, you often hear that in the US.
You do. Of course, both are absolutely right. Of course they are. Leisure. Eli, do you want to read the sentence?
Mm-hmm. Mobile phones have dramatically altered the way that people spend their leisure time or leisure time.
Exactly. Let's see what people have got. Great. Interesting. Roshan as well. We've got overwhelmingly everybody has found this one quite interesting. Habal, nice to see you here. Great. The answer is, yay, it's leisure with an I, E-I, of course. Next one, we got 2 more. Receive or receive. Eli, what's the phrase here?
So young people who receive anything they want often become spoilt and demanding when they become adults. How do we spell receive?
Very true,
Is it
actually.
E-I or I-E?
Guys, come in. Let us know what you think. It's true. Spoiling little children. They get everything they want and they become spoiled little brats, is what we call them in Manchester. Jeff says EI. Ed says EI. RTM, good to see you, says EI. We've got another EI. We've got 1 or 2 IEs from Jimin and also Ting Yi. We've got a question from Little Jewel. Haha, Little Jewel, duh. Question, you're not sure. Sivan Nissen says EI. Antoni says EI. Well, okay, the answer is EI. Hooray! Well done. This is where I think these little rules we have are a waste of time because in English, don't we say I, what do we say? I after E except after C. Is that right?
That's right. So yeah, so this has the C. So we do have CEI. So I after E, except after C. Although you're right, there are so many exceptions to this rule that it's almost not a rule.
Exactly, exactly. But this one follows the rule, right? I before E, except after C. Good. We're going to do the last one. Environment. Oh, this is tricky. What are you downloading? I didn't ask you to stop downloading. Environment. Guys, what do you think? Bin says, interesting canned laughter. It's applause, not laughter, Bin. Come on. Hassan says, Google helps type the right word. Yes, thank goodness. Saves me in many situations. Right.
Although not in the IELTS writing test, unfortunately.
Yeah, not in IELTS
No
writing. It
Google
doesn't
there
help
to
you.
help you.
That's right. So Julia says environment with an NM, NM, not M&Ms, but N and M. We've also got from Anna as well. Who else? Anuwat says with the N. Sorry, Anuwat, didn't get you on. Jitin says with the N. Anybody else? Semi-chan, NM. I think this one's a relatively easy one. Yes. So Ismail says with the N. Xiao Herma says the second. Brilliant. The answer is, of course, the second one. It's environment. Very, very nice. Well, that's it. Listen, that's the spelling. Brilliant. Well done. You guys did really, really well. Spelling is key. It's very important to practice and to work on. There may be some little rules that can help you, but I think a lot of it comes from just practice and practice, right? What do you think, Eli?
Yeah, I think people who read a lot tend to have better spelling abilities. So read a lot in English, and also when you're watching films or a series, put on the subtitles, and you'll learn the spelling as well while you're being entertained.
That's very true. That's very, very true. Listen, let's move on without any further ado. Let's have a look at. So we talked about accuracy and spelling. The other part of lexical resource that we haven't mentioned yet is this paraphrasing idea, where you rewrite using different words. Tell us a bit more about that, Eli. What's the examiner looking for?
So paraphrasing is the first thing that the examiner is really going to spot, and that's because when you introduce the topic in your introduction, you're going to take the question, so what you see on the screen now, and you're going to try and write it in your own words. So you're paraphrasing and you're using synonyms. So what we'd like you to do is to look at the words that are in pink and to think about what are some possible synonyms for these words. So instead of saying teenagers should have regular exams, maybe we can introduce the same concept with a different word instead of regular exams. So maybe we could put number 1, number 2, and then number 3 here, Keith. And people or the audience can think about some synonyms for number 1, regular exams, number 2, secondary school, and number 3, slightly more challenging, life after leaving school. And then afterwards, I'll show you some synonyms that we decided on.
Your wish is my command. It's done. Right. Regular exams, secondary school, life after leaving school. Is there life after leaving school?
I think there's more life when you leave school.
I totally agree, actually. My life took off after I left school. I found school a little bit restrictive. It wasn't the best environment for me for learning. I don't know, but I just found the whole teaching method a bit not repressive, but not very creative and incredibly boring at times. It was when I left school and went to university that wow, boom, things just changed radically for me.
I remember you saying you went to quite a strict school, right? You had to wear a school uniform and the rest of it.
I did. I went to this grammar school, right? Grammar school. So we had a cap, we had a tie, we had a blazer. I mean, great. It taught me how to make a tie or to do a tie for future working life. And, you know, some aspects of the education were very, very good. But there was a lot of just memorized learning, repeating things, reading books. There wasn't much engagement or creativity around it. And it wasn't, and it was always being told step by step what to do. And at university, it was like, go and do what you need to do. I was like, but what do I do? And expecting somebody to tell me because I wasn't ready for this autonomy. But I learned it very quickly and I loved it, really liked it.
Mm.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people really thrive when they enter university, because they appreciate that freedom and that autonomy.
Yep, that was definitely my case.
Mm.
Brilliant. I'm going to bring us back, see what people have got. Synonyms. So for number 1, frequent exams. JD, tests regularly. Secondary school, college. Secondary school and college. It's interesting, right? Because college in America is used differently from college in Britain. And I think you're right. In secondary school, they do call it college. But in England, we wouldn't. But that's fine. Life after leaving school, adulthood. Jeff, what do you think of these ones, Eli?
So, number one, entrance exams. No, that's not really a synonym because an entrance exam is the exam that you typically do to get into university, whereas we're talking about regular exams throughout high school. So, that might include exams that you do when you're 15 years old that don't really impact whether or not you're directly going to university. So, you'd want to be careful about that kind of synonym because, well, it's not really a synonym here.
High school, again, I would say yes for secondary school. And graduation, life after leaving school, graduation. The graduation's the leaving school, whereas life after graduation is life after school. So maybe life after graduation could be. Yeah.
Yeah. A bit like, or you could change it, for example, to upon graduating.
Yeah.
So you're taking that idea, but you're showing the fact that it's after you've graduated.
Yeah. I've got a quick question for you, Eli, about your school experience.
Go for it.
When you left school, school, right? Not university. When you left school, secondary school, did you have a graduation ceremony?
Yeah, we had what's called a leavers ball. So it's a bit
Wow.
more low key than a graduation ceremony.
Okay.
But it was I think the school rented out a hotel and they had a DJ and
Wow.
um, I went to a school in Scotland, so most of the men wore kilts to our leaving ceremony,
Right.
and there were a couple of speeches made and lots of dancing.
Fantastic. That's great. Because I mean, I'm going to show my age, but when I left school, there was no such thing as a graduation party. You just like, thank you, bye bye, and you left, and that was it. Like, but nowadays it seems, and I think this comes from America, the idea of the high school graduation, the prom, the ball, the big event and big celebration. My niece was telling me that she had the same a couple of years ago when she graduated. And it's, I think we've picked up this a bit of the American culture, maybe.
I think you're spot on. I think the US take it very seriously. Recently, I was watching. Admittedly, I think this was for a university, but Stanford University would invite Steve Jobs
Yeah,
to come and speak at the graduation. You're thinking, wow,
yeah,
imagine graduating from high school or university and having someone as larger than life as Steve Jobs to come and
yeah,
wish you well
yeah.
upon graduating.
It is amazing, isn't it? But nice. I think it's a good thing to do.
Yeah.
Um, Excellent. So we got lots of ideas from people there. Possible synonyms. I'm just going to move on to put in some that Eli suggests here. Eli, talk us through.
Yeah, so this sentence is introducing the topic. So we're taking the general theme and we're just having an introductory sentence to show the examiner that we're on the right track. So we're going to say exams are an important feature of secondary education. So secondary education is a synonym for secondary school.
Hmm.
And I can't remember who it was, but like somebody pointed out, you could also use high school here. And then we say, however, there is contention. So contention means there is a debate. So there is contention over whether frequent exams. So that's a synonym for regular exams. And somebody also pointed that out, where the frequent exams prepare students for post-school life. So that's life after leaving school, or like we mentioned, for life upon graduation.
Nice. Life upon graduation. That's nice. Yes. I noticed we've got, I think it was Negar who said life after graduation. A few people said life after graduation. But Eli, very nice. Life upon graduation. Very nice. Can tell you're a native speaker. Right. Lovely. Lexical resource. We've talked a lot about that. Now, I did have a quick question for you here, and I wanted to actually share something with everybody very briefly because we've talked about what the examiner's looking for, right? Different parts of lexical resource, including spelling, accuracy, synonyms, paraphrasing. A common question students ask me is, well, okay, how do I build my vocabulary? How do I learn my vocabulary? Eli, any tips here for learning vocabulary?
So I was interviewing a writing band 8 student recently, and they had this great line. They said, in order to be a great writer, you need to be an avid reader. You need to be a great reader. And I think when I asked them to elaborate on that, they said that they learned so much vocabulary that they could use in their writing test from reading a lot. And in particular, they were reading a lot of model essays, and they were paying attention to the collocations, to the synonyms, to all of the phrases that were used in these model essays, and they were able to apply it to their own writing. So I
Yes.
think that's a very useful way to learn vocabulary and learn the suitable context for that vocabulary as well, because that's also important. What do you think, Keith?
I would agree with that entirely. I was just I was going to share something that actually I think is the thing that you saw as well, probably the same thing. Um, on the Facebook group, I put in a question the other day, and I can maybe just show guys very briefly this. And it was asking people about this particular question. Oh, I don't know if I've lost it now. About how people learn vocabulary. Let me just show you, and I'll tell you what I think about it. If you give me a moment, if I can get this. So I was asking, how do you learn and build vocabulary for IELTS writing? And there were some amazing tips in here from people. And I was really impressed at the quality of the suggestions. I suggest you go and have a look at this, guys, because there are some really good things. From studying word families and noticing lexical chains is really good. Collocations, which we've talked about. Something simple, like Isa said, just read my favorite articles and take a note for new vocabs. As simple as that can be really, really good. Reading example answers can work as well. It's a good way of practicing. And also, there were others here. We had, for example, I read sample essays and use that vocabulary and complex sentences in my writings repeatedly. So the idea of repeating and practicing it, I thought that was nice as well. And what else? There were some interesting ones here, apart from dancing babies. Huda says, I believe vocabulary can be built up during the learning process. It begins when we read, listen, and speak. So the vocabulary actually is not just in reading, it's connected with your speaking and your listening as well. The process may take some time. It doesn't happen in a day. And they go on to give you more ideas there.
So
But
Keith, it was actually Huda that got band 8 in the writing test just 2 weeks ago.
So Huda was the one. She got a band 8 in the writing. Fantastic. Well, I'm not surprised because her suggestion here was fantastic.
So I interviewed her last week, and I'll be putting
Right.
that video on my YouTube channel rather soon.
Oh, fantastic. Oh, that's something to look out for. What's the name of your YouTube channel?
So it's English Pro Tips IELTS Preparation. And I think if you just type in English Pro Tips into YouTube, it'll come up.
Pro as in PRO, as in professional pro.
That's right.
Right, fantastic. That's great. Love it. Very, very, very nice. So well done, Huda. We'll look forward to that. And for the rest of you, do go and check out the website. It's on Facebook. It's Keith's Mastermind Community for IELTS Speaking. If you go into Facebook and just ask to join, then I'll let you in. And it's full of us sharing ideas, answering questions. A great place to find out more and to get your learning tips as well, like that. And check out the YouTube channel, Eli's YouTube channel, coming shortly. Excellent. So I distracted us a little bit there. Let's come back because we were looking at lexical resource, but we're going to move on to our last area, right? So just to recap, we've done task achievement, coherence and cohesion, lexical resource, and now winding up with grammatical range. Okay, grammatical range. Let's have a look here. Eli, what are we going to discuss?
Okay, so there's three components of grammatical range and accuracy. There's the range of structures. So you'll often hear teachers talking about complex sentences. So you have simple and complex sentences. And then within these, there's different structures like the past simple, the present perfect. So that's what we talk about when we talk about a range of structures. But then there's the accuracy, which is, can you use those well, using the correct form? And then finally, there's punctuation, which is, can you use commas, full stops, capital letters, colons, and semicolons correctly?
Nice. Excellent. So range of structures, as you said, people often talk about simple structures and complex structures. I like what you've done here. You've kind of given them some examples of what are commonly seen as simple, like present simple, past. The name gives it away, right? Present simple, past simple, independent clauses, defining relative clauses, and then complex structures as well. That's very, very nice. Would you agree that when we're writing, you don't want to aim only for complex structures, that actually you need a mix of both?
Yes, I completely agree. So as part of my writing evaluation service, I try and give people 3 tips to improve their writing. And one of the most common tips that I give is you're trying to fit too much information into one sentence. And I think that's what happens when people are focusing on these complex sentences. So they try and fit too much information and they keep on adding these subordinate clauses and extra information into their sentences. And as a result, they're almost impossible to read fluent, like in terms of coherence and cohesion, because you need to read them several times to really understand what the central message is. So I think you should not focus on using complex structures necessarily. I think you should focus on communicating your idea. And as a result, as you develop your ideas, you're going to use a range of simple and complex structures naturally.
I really love that. Focus on communicating your idea. That's the first thing, right? That's really, really nice. Great. Love it. We've then mentioned grammar mistakes.
Yeah, so that's basically the examiner is going to identify what kind of structure you're trying to use, and the next thing they're going to ask themselves is, are you using that structure correctly? So if they see, for example, a non-defining relative clause, so something like the 2 teachers who were doing the live lesson, so us and who were doing the live lesson is the non-defining relative clause. And they'll say, okay, well, they used the right pronoun, the right pronoun here. So who were doing the live lesson? But if you wrote, for example, that were doing the live lesson, then maybe that's a mistake. So they're going to be looking at, are you using the best structure, and are you using that structure accurately?
Right, exactly. Very good, very nice. Now, we're going to challenge people again because we've done a spelling challenge, but we're going to challenge them now with a grammar mistake, right? Mistakes fun. I tell you what, I mean, we were interested, grammar mistakes also. Well, let's have a look at this first, and then we can talk about different kinds of mistakes. I've written a sentence here that's incorrect. So there is a grammatical mistake here. I wonder if there's anybody watching clever enough to spot the mistake. Let's have a look. Let me know in the chat box. Let us know, and we'll see. I'll give you a second to find it out. As you're doing that, let's go Caribbean. Interesting. Okay, let me put up some ideas. We've got Hong Jun Yao has got, and also here SX said the government or governments. UH Sharp, governments needs. RTM, the government. Great. Nice. Well, let's have a look what the answer is. I think the government needs to take drastic measures. Excellent. Now, there were some interesting comments there. For example, this one, Eli, what do you say to this? The government or governments?
Yeah, so if you put the government, then you're kind of referring to the idea of the government. And then you can also be referring to the government in your country. Whereas if you say governments, then you're talking about governments all over the world. Would you agree with that?
Yes, without context, governments would be governments generally all across the world. If you were talking about the context of a particular state, maybe you could refer to different governments, but without context, I'd agree. And the government is a specific government. Yeah, if I talk to you about the government, then I'm talking to you about the British government, Boris Johnson and his team. It's very, very clear. Yes, absolutely. Great. The government. Now, another question that came up is from Eds Brands, and she suggests, I think the government need, but I've written, I think the government needs. So is government singular, as in the government needs, or is it a plural noun, as in the government need? Eli.
Which one would you choose? Well, which one would you choose in this sentence? You've gone for needs.
Yeah, I wrote out needs.
I feel like I could go for either one.
Exactly. So the point here is that there are some nouns in English that can be both plural and singular, and government is one of them. I tend to use nouns like this, like the government needs. I tend to use it as a singular, right? It needs to do something, because I think of it as a unit, as an organization. The government needs to do that. But there are other words, Eli, which other words do we typically have that can be both plural and singular?
Yeah, so it's a bit like team, isn't it? Or family.
Yes. Family. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, my family needs to take a holiday, or the family needs to take a holiday. It could be both. Yeah. And there's very little difference in meaning. There may be a slight nuance in meaning, but grammatically, they're both correct. With these words, government, family, team, there are a few others, but it's worth noting them. Great. So grammar mistakes. I wonder what other kind of mistakes students make. I mean, we can ask guys to tell us the mistakes they make. In your experience, Eli, what are the most common grammatical mistakes you find?
So certainly subject-verb agreement causes a lot of trouble.
Subject-verb agreement, like he goes or he go?
Exactly, yeah. And especially with slightly more complex pronouns like everyone.
Right. Yes. Everyone has a point of view. Yeah.
Or, for example, like the number of people.
The number of people. The number of
Hmm.
people.
So it'd be like, for example, like the number of people is or are increasing. So in this
Ah,
case, the number of people is increasing.
yes. Yes, because that's singular.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So these kind of longer noun phrases, they're difficult to put with the correct verb form.
Right.
Now, on top of that, articles cause a lot of trouble in general. Um,
Explain.
so, so, for example, many students will put a definite article, so they'll put a the when
Hmm.
they're talking about something in general. So they'll
Yeah.
say something like, "The exams are important for the students."
Hmm.
Whereas because we're talking about exams in general and students in general, we would just say exams are important for students.
Yeah.
We use then we're talking about specific exams or
Yeah.
specific students. What I often recommend to people is that they find out the most common mistakes that are typical for their first language.
Yeah.
So both of us have spent quite a lot of time in China. A lot of
Mm.
Chinese students, maybe more when they're speaking, struggle with the past tenses.
Yeah.
So they'll refer to the past, but they'll use the present simple. Um, and so, as a result, if you're a Chinese student, it's worth paying attention to that and also finding out what are the other problem areas for Chinese speakers learning English.
Yeah.
And regardless of what language you speak, you can find out the problem areas for
Yeah.
your language and what happens when you try and translate into English.
Absolutely, very, very true. I think, I mean, yeah, it comes to mind having taught a lot of um, Polish and Russian speakers that the articles are very problematic because in their language, either they don't have an article or they use it in a very different way. Um, so yeah, it's a very, very good point. The Some guys have shared with us. I mean, Huda talks about subject verb agreement being difficult. Parisa mentions conditionals, making mistakes there. Absolutely. Articles as well.
Hmm.
Oh, and we've got somebody spamming. Yes, never mind. Never mind. Okay, good. So let's. We've looked there at grammar and accuracy. What about grammar and pronunciation? Punctuation, the last one. Any thoughts there?
Yeah, just to be aware of it, really. Full stops. People don't tend to find full stops difficult. Capital letters, likewise. There's not usually that many problems with capital letters. Commas, there are lots of problems with commas. So it's worth spending some time revising that. And if you have bought my writing course, you'll find your own designated lesson where we go into commas in a huge amount of detail and we look at specifically at the rules of commas related to IELTS writing. So essay writing and then also for task one. So if you know that commas are something that you struggle with, do take time to research that. And then finally, colons and semicolons, which are not so common in essays, but always a good idea to learn about because they can be very useful when it comes to essay writing.
Fantastic. Great. Good. So actually, we've been right through here today. We've had a mammoth session, despite being broken up in the middle. We've looked at the 4 areas that examiners are looking at, and all the different details of each one that you need to be focused on to make sure that you can give the examiner what they want, and basically, which is to get a higher score. That's what you need to do, essentially. Now, you may be thinking, that's great. I mean, I think that's very useful. And people are saying it is very useful and helpful. But there's more, right? Because the next question is, well, knowing that, which is a little bit abstract, how can I actually use that to get a band 9 or even a band 7 and band 8? And Eli and I would like to help you even more to do that, to take the knowledge of today and to put it into practice. So, how can we put this into practice? Very, very simple way. We've decided to give you a very simple free training course. So, it's a free training. It's one session. It's a webinar session. It's a webinar that is recorded. And what you can do after today, when you finish this session, is you can go to the description, and in a few moments it will appear. There will be a link to the free webinar training. And the free webinar training what we will do, both myself and Eli together, is we will take you through a model essay, what we call a Band 8 or Band 9 model essay. We'll go through it step by step, showing you the different aspects of task achievement, coherence and cohesion, lexical resource, grammatical range and accuracy, and show you why that essay is a Band 9. What is the person doing to get a Band 9? And how you can emulate that, you can do the same to help you get a Band 8 or 9. A little caveat, or maybe a warning, is, of course, it depends largely on your ability, your writing ability. So if your writing ability is level 5, you're not going to get a Band 9 just by watching this video, right? Let's be clear. You need to be practicing your writing to improve that skill. That said, having some tips and techniques and understanding how the exam works can really, really help. And I think, and maybe Eli can tell us more, that you do see the difference between a student who can be maybe at a Band 7 level but has not understood the exam and has ended up with a 5 or a 6 because they've just not understood how the exam works. Sometimes that happens. Would you agree, Eli?
Yeah, that happens regularly, actually. People with great English language ability, but people that don't understand the format or the little ins and outs of essay writing for IELTS. And it's a real shame when that happens, but it does happen.
Yeah. And so I guess that, the message is keep on practicing, but also learn the techniques. And that's what we want to show you. We want to give you this free webinar where you can look and follow us going through a model essay, step by step, and showing you why it is so good. We'll also, in that webinar, we'll be giving you a couple of freebies. What are the freebies, Eli?
So we've got the essay itself with examiner commentary. So you'll be able to see the structure of the essay. You'll be able to see the essay itself in its components. So you'll see which part is the topic sentence, which part is the development, which part is the link. And then on top of that, you also have a PDF checklist that's going to help you with your own writing. So
Right.
You'll be able to see, for example, what you should be considering before you write your essay. And then also after you've written your essay, there's some boxes that you need to be able to tick. So little things like, have I fully understood the question, and have I introduced the topic? Have I developed all of my ideas? Have I restated my position in the conclusion? And you can keep this checklist with you when you're writing your practice essays before your IELTS test.
Fantastic. Great. Good. So you've got those 2 freebies you can take away. That's the model answer and this checklist, which would be very, very, very useful for your practice and for getting ready for that. So bear with me. I'm just doing 3 things at the same time. So what I'm going to do now is I'll just show you how you can sign up. So basically, you just need to sign up for the webinar. As soon as you sign up, you can go in and do it. I will put the link right now into the chat so you can see it. I'll also put it into the description of the video. But let me show you just how this would work, right? So if I share with you my website over here, and I'll click on the link that I'm going to give you, and that takes me basically to it takes me here. It takes me to a little page. Just for this, it says that IELTS Writing, it's the webinar, how to get a Band 9 in IELTS Writing. All you need to do is you just fill in your name, fill in your email, just give a click here and join now. And when you click on join now, it will take you into the waiting room. You can access this straight away. This is the great thing. You don't have to wait or book until next week. you come here and then you press join the room. And when you join the room, it will take you into the webinar training room. And inside that, you can watch me and Eli together talking through this model essay and how it works. There's a chat in there as well, so you can ask us questions. So just to be clear, it's not live, it's recorded, but in the chat you can ask questions and we will see those and we will come back and answer your questions via email. So there are also different polls and questions and handouts, as Eli said, that you can get in the training. We think you'll love it. We think it'll be very useful to help you understand IELTS writing and how to get a band 7, 8, and 9 and to improve your own levels of writing. Of course, as I said, in addition to technique, practice is key. And actually a great way to get both practice and technique is through the course of Eli. Eli's got the online course, right? If I remember correctly.
Yes, that's right. So my course is the Complete IELTS Writing course, which is proven methods for 7+ in IELTS writing. And it's for those people who are preparing for the academic and general IELTS. So it doesn't matter which one you're doing, you'll find lessons for you to help you get that band 7+. And the course kind of goes through everything that you need to know to be fully prepared for your IELTS writing test. It starts by looking at task 2. We look at all the different essay types. So there are 5 different essay types, from agree, disagree questions to double questions and direct questions. And we look at structures for all of those questions. We look at how you would write an introduction, how you develop your ideas and body paragraphs, what information you should include in your conclusion, and what are some useful structures to put into all of these parts of your essay. There's also a section on vocabulary where we look at different linking words and how we can use synonyms and what are some appropriate synonyms for some of the common words that appear in IELTS writing. There's also a section on grammatical range and accuracy, which this lesson has touched on, except it goes in a lot more detail. And actually, we look at the most common mistakes in IELTS writing, and then also some advanced grammar that you can use in your IELTS essay. So things like the passive form, non-defining relative clauses, conditionals, which I think is very useful for some of the students that mentioned that they find conditionals difficult in their IELTS writing. And then it also goes into task 1 general, which is the letter writing, and task 1 academic, which is the report writing. So if you've got your IELTS test coming up and you're looking for a particularly high score, then I really recommend that you check out my complete IELTS writing course at the Keith Speaking Academy.
Fantastic. It looks like an advertisement. It is an advertisement, but it's brilliant. It's a great course. Go and check it out.
Yeah.
Love it. Great. So listen, that course is well worth checking out. What I can do actually is I can just show you how to find it. Of course, the course is a paid for course, right? But if you go over to the website, the Keith Speaking Academy, and that's here at keithspeakingacademy.com, you'll see this box. It says online courses. And if you click on the online course, you'll see the different online courses that we have that in the school here. And the complete IELTS writing course is Eli's course is right here. You can click on it there and find out all the information about the course. You can see the curriculum, what you're going to learn in the course. There's plenty of work, but it's absolutely brilliant. And you can get the course there. And basically, the price is $27. It's because you pay tax in some countries. But as soon as you click on the Buy Now button, it'll take you to the course and you can pay there with either credit card or PayPal. And you can do the checkout straight away there. It's on the keithspeakingacademy.com website. So that's the paid for course. And it's a great way to carry on practicing and to learn. It's a complete guide to IELTS, right? Now, in addition to that, as I mentioned, what we are doing, both Eli and myself, is offering you a free webinar training. The free webinar training you can get by clicking the link in the messages or clicking the link in the description of this video at the bottom. Just look for the free training webinar link, and that'll take you. That's the one that'll take you to the page I showed you earlier, which is this page over here, right? And when you go there, put in your name, put in your email, join now, and you can go and watch it, which will be great. I can see Bin Anne is saying, I'm in the room, and two Keiths are talking. Two Keiths and two Elis, because you're watching it at the same time, right? Fantastic. Great. So you can do that in a moment as soon as we finish. Jan says, can you use it more than once? The free webinar training, yes, is the answer. So when you say press join now, you automatically get an email from me and Eli saying, thank you for joining. Here's the link. So you can go back 2 or 3 times if you want and watch it again. You can't download it, but you can go back several times, watch it as many times as you need to learn what you need. Parisa, how long do you have access to the webinar? I think we're going to put it up there probably for the next month at the moment, maybe more. Eli, what do you think?
Yeah, I've no idea. This was my first webinar. It was really exciting. And it's I watched over it today. It's absolutely brilliant. I love the fact that there's so many interactive polls. There's the ability to get involved in the chat box and to download material. So I guess we'll just kind of watch and see if it's useful for people.
Right, exactly. But I would say a minimum, probably a month and maybe longer. We'll let you know if it's still useful. Tangi, I appreciate it. You're welcome. No problem at all. Johanna as well. You're very, very welcome. What else? Anything else we've got? I'm just seeing if there's any other comments. It was very useful. Thank you very much. Oh, great. You are absolutely very, very welcome. Albert says, how much for the private lesson? We don't do private lessons, Albert, but the online course, which is self-access, is $27. Yes. Okay. Great. Okay, that's for the course. But of course, the webinar, what you want to do now is go and watch that webinar, the free webinar. It's a recorded session. It's interactive. It's fun. I think you'll love it. And that, for us, is it for today. We've done a lot today, Eli. We've had a lot of interesting moments with technical problems, funny idioms, as well as all the stuff that we've covered. Big thank you. Thank you very much for joining us today. It's been really, really fun. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you to everyone that came today. And I hope you enjoy the webinar. And thank you, Keith, also for hosting this. It's been a real fun experience being in a live lesson with you again.
Great. Same here. I've really enjoyed it. And of course, thank you everybody for watching. Really appreciate it. Look forward to seeing you all, well, soon. When is my next live lesson? I'm just looking. My next live lesson is not next week. It's going to be the week after. So on the 5th of May, there'll be another live lesson with me, just with me. We'll be looking at IELTS Speaking. In the meantime, you can check out my YouTube channel, English Speaking Success, Eli's YouTube channel, English Pro Tips. There's lots of stuff for you to be doing. But right now, go and watch that free training webinar. And I think you'll thank us for it later. That's it. Thank you for joining us. Take care, my friends. All the best. Bye-bye. Great. Cheerio.